Another year has come, so of course, another Naruto November has come as well. This year, we're going to be taking a look at the Nintendo exclusive Clash of Ninja series. Will this series surpass the Ultimate Ninja series? Will it be any good at all? Over the course of the next 4 videos, I'm going to do my best to answer these questions. But for now, let's get started with the original Clash of Ninja, and let's roll the intro. Right off the bat, let me give some context. The Ultimate Ninja series was published by Bandai Namco, who had the rights to publish Naruto games. However, they weren't the only publisher with Naruto game rights. There was also Takara Tomy, who published the Naruto games for the Nintendo consoles. They had their flagship series to compete with the Ultimate Ninja series. That was the Clash of Ninja series. So throughout these reviews, I'm going to be comparing the two as they were competing with each other at the time. This is a good transition point to talking about the gameplay of Clash of Ninja 1. Clash of Ninja 1 and the Clash of Ninja series as a whole are 3D fighters. Unlike the Ultimate Ninja series, this means you can move around the whole arena instead of just moving left to right, like in Ultimate Ninja. The fighting mechanics are also different. Obviously it's still a fighting game, as most Naruto games are, so the overall goal is to win the match against your opponent, but the fighting system as a whole is completely different from Ultimate Ninja. Unlike Ultimate Ninja, Clash of Ninja has a full-blown combo system. It's actually fairly simple and fun, and it mainly involves just combining different button inputs and directional inputs on the controller. For example, you can do a basic combo by just pressing the B button, or if you hold the analog stick down and press the B button, followed by repeatedly hitting the A button to form an entirely new combo. It's a really fun system, and each character has their own variation of certain combos. Aside from the combos, you can also pull off ultimate attacks. They're very easy to pull off, only requiring single button presses. They do massive damage to the enemy, but they also have to connect to the enemy. You see, when you activate the ultimate attack, your character will do a little animation, like Naruto doing a shoulder dash. If the animation doesn't connect, you don't do an ultimate attack, and you lose the chakra that you just built up. It gives it more of a risk-reward type of system, unlike in Ultimate Ninja, cause there, missing an ultimate attack didn't cost any chakra. The only punishment was missing the attack. Speaking of chakra, like in Ultimate Ninja, your chakra meter is essentially your energy meter. You build up your energy meter by landing attacks and getting attacked by your opponent. As I mentioned earlier, you use your chakra meter to perform your ultimate attack, but you also use chakra to perform a substitution jutsu. Substitution is a teleport move. Just press one of the turn buttons when being hit, and you'll teleport to the other side of the arena. This mechanic was present in the Ultimate Ninja series, but I like it better here, because I think it is easier to pull off and more valuable. Why is that? Well, unlike Ultimate Ninja, Clash of Ninja matches can end very quickly, despite needing a best of 2 to win a match. Once again, unlike Ultimate Ninja, where some matches went on forever. This whole fighting game system is a lot more fun to play around with than Ultimate Ninja was. In the end, it makes the game far more replayable in my opinion. Another thing that makes it a lot more enjoyable to play is the increased challenge in Clash of Ninja. You see, as a whole, Ultimate Ninja was rarely challenging, but here, the AI is actually quite competent, but it's also fair. Keep that last note in mind for later down the road. But overall, Clash of Ninja is really fun, and simply from a gameplay perspective, is miles ahead of the Ultimate Ninja series. Gameplay isn't the only thing though when it comes to Naruto games, so let's talk about the art style and how it adapts the show for the GameCube. The game goes for a cel shading art style. and I love this. I think this is a great translation from the show to the game, especially the characters. I think they look amazing in this game. The environments don't look as good, but still, the art style really holds up today. But besides the in-game graphics, there are also the cutscene graphics. If you can even call them cutscenes. They're these scenes you see on the screen right now. They play out almost like visual novel cutscenes. It shows mostly static images of the characters, with a bit of motion every now and then. It's fine, and quite similar to Ultimate Ninja 1's cutscenes. I like them more here though, because they actually move around to show events happening in the scene. But still, they're nothing special. Let's move on to something else now. I've decided to add another category to things I look at in Naruto games. The music. This is because the music of Naruto is incredible, and as such, the games need to be held up to the same standard as that. Unfortunately, comparing Clash of Ninja's soundtrack to the show's won't be doing it any favors. It's not bad, but it's not great either, especially compared to the Ultimate Ninja soundtrack. In fact, let's compare the two. It speaks for itself, but again, it's not bad, but it doesn't really fit Naruto. But now it's time for the story of Clash of Ninja, and how it adapts the story of Naruto as a whole. This game adapts the intro arc and the Land of Waves. Wait, that's it? How long is the story mode again? 21 minutes! That's it?! Keep in mind that I watched the cutscenes and stayed for the credits. You can probably skip those and beat the story in less than half the time. The fact that these stories are given so little time takes away any emotional impact that they could have had. I get it, this is primarily a fighting game, but that doesn't give you an excuse to skip out on the story. One of the other things that annoys me about the story is the fact that you only play as Naruto. Yes, the show is called Naruto, but a major part of my love of Naruto comes from the various side characters. So not being able to play as them is very disappointing. I wish I could tell you there is more to the game than just that, but there really isn't. There is only one unlockable character, Rock Lee, bringing the total number of characters to 8. This leaves the original Clash of Ninja lacking in a lot of areas. While the gameplay and visuals are really solid, the story and lack of content ultimately leave the game feeling really hollow. Thankfully, less than a year later, Tomy would release Naruto, Clash of Ninja 2. And when I say less than a year, I mean 9 months. The original game was released on April 11th, 2003, and the sequel came out on December 4th, 2003. Anyone expecting a dramatic overhaul in gameplay should go somewhere else. Clash of Ninja 2 is more or less just an expansion to the original game, featuring almost exactly the same gameplay, with maybe some slight alterations, and an expanded story mode. But before we move on to the story mode, let's look at the one new major addition to the gameplay. There is a new fighting mode, where 4 characters can fight at once. It's kind of chaotic, but that's kind of what makes it fun. Not really much to say about this new mode overall, it's just a really neat addition. The much more interesting new addition to the game is the increased roster. The game more than doubles the roster of the last game, adding much needed replay value and longevity to the game. Granted, the way you unlock all these characters is not exactly the most intuitive. You have to buy the characters using the money you earn by playing the game. But the money earned by playing the game modes is pretty limited, making the speed at which you unlock characters very slow. The graphics and music are about on par with the first game. There may have been a few new tracks added, but I didn't notice any new ones. As far as the graphics go, I think they really just copy and paste them. Normally I'd be more critical about this, but considering they only had 9 months to get this game out, I'll take what I can get. So the game's not perfect. It's largely just a repeat of the first game. I can forgive all that though, because the story is a massive improvement over the first game. But I'll get my gripes with the story out of the way first. Instead of the body portraits from the last game, They just use these headshots for the cutscenes between fights now. It's not terrible, I just prefer the style of the last game, even though neither option is exactly perfect. Also, some parts are kind of lazy. Like at the beginning of the game, I swear they reused the exact same line of dialogue from the first game.
Sakura! Are you okay? I didn't mean to... You are so annoying! Come on, Sakura! That's not fair! Sakura, are you alright? You took me by surprise, so You're so annoying! Ah! Sakura, that's not fair!
Also, this still isn't the greatest adaptation of the Naruto story. Certain parts just aren't explained very well, like I don't think the game mentions Gaara's backstory at all. With that out of the way though, let's talk about why the story is much better than the first. For one, it's much longer. The game still covers the intro and the Land of Waves arc, but it also covers the Chunin exams arc. This adds a lot more battles for the player to experience the story. Also, you don't just play as Naruto this time, you get to play as other characters as well. This alone would make me recommend this game over the original. But the improvements don't stop there. There's even some variety thrown in. There's a beat 'em up level in the Forest of Death. It's kind of awkward due to Naruto only being able to target certain enemies at a time, indicated by the arrow at the bottom of his character model, but still, it's really enjoyable. I think more of this would be great. Now there's one last thing to point out, and that's the difficulty. I can barely recall times when Ultimate Ninja challenged me, but Clash of Ninja always manages to put up a good fight. The first game didn't challenge me much, but here, some of the story fights are actually quite challenging. However, the fights here are still fair. Remember that part for the future. Trust me, it'll be important. Overall, this story mode makes this my favorite game in the Clash of Ninja series so far. While it may have started out bumpy, the sequel seemed to put things in the right direction. Clash of Ninja 2 is a really good Naruto game. Naruto Gekto Ninja Taisen 3 was released for the GameCube in Japan in 2004. When it came time for a US release, the game would come to the Wii as Naruto Clash of Ninja Revolution. This is a bigger deal than you would think. The Wii sold far more copies than the GameCube ever did, so this game had an opportunity to introduce a whole new audience of gamers to the Naruto franchise. Not to mention, if you saw my last video, you'll know I really enjoyed Clash of Ninja 2, thanks to it improving the problems from the first game, like the short story mode and lack of content. Did Clash of Ninja Revolution, though, improve upon the foundation set by Clash of Ninja 2? In my opinion, no. But let's find out why. This is my review of Naruto Clash of Ninja Revolution. I'm actually going to structure this review differently than my other Naruto reviews. I'm going to get all of the nice things out of the way first, then we're going to talk about the negatives. First, the gameplay and visuals are just as good as in the previous games. The visuals look like they got a minor touch, and it looks a bit nicer than the previous games. The gameplay also received a couple of touch-ups that are a bit more noticeable than the visuals. The biggest one I noticed was that more characters now have form changes. For example, Sasuke and Kakashi can activate their Sharingans, and they even gain new moves in these powered up states. Now I know in Clash of Ninja 2, Rock Lee had a form change, but here it's far more prevalent. I'll explain in a little bit why that is, but trust me, it's important. It's also more prevalent here because I believe in Clash of Ninja 2, there were different versions of characters. For example, there was regular Sasuke, and then Sharingan Sasuke. Same thing for Kakashi too, but here, they put them together, and it gives more variety to the combat, as you unlock new combos in these modes. Another new gameplay addition is stage transitions. These occur when you're attacking the enemy near the edge of the stage, and you knock them in the air. At this point you have three options of things you can do. 1. You can hit the enemy in the air and do additional damage. But be aware, even in this state, the enemy can dodge your attack. You can also choose to go behind the enemy, so that when you land, you can continue comboing the enemy. This is a neat addition, but overall, I don't feel like it adds much to the game. So there's one last thing to talk about, and that's how you unlock characters to play as outside of the story. They got rid of the store, and now you just have to beat the arcade mode with certain characters to unlock someone else. I prefer this method compared to the store of the last game, because the way you're able to unlock characters here is much quicker.
Hope you were paying attention, because I'm leaving the nice things behind.
I left out one new gameplay change, and that's the stage covers. On various stages throughout the game, there are these rocks on the stage that your character can get behind and hide. What's the point of this? It's honestly just kind of useless. It just adds unnecessary clutter to the stage and makes it harder to maneuver around. I have more gameplay complaints, but they're all connected to the story mode, so we'll talk about those in a little bit. For now, let's talk about the game case. Now let me explain something. Normally I don't talk about the game cover, because it's not important to the game overall. But here, there's one particular thing I want to address. On the back, it mentions that you can use the GameCube controller, but at the top, it only shows the Wiimote and Classic controller options. And sure enough, when you start the game, those are the only options available to the player. The reason this makes me angry is that one, the game is straight up lying to you, but the second reason is that this is the only game in the series where you can't use a GameCube controller. After playing the first two games, you get used to a certain kind of controller. So this kind of pulling the rug out from under you really frustrates me. Some people may think I'm making too big a deal of this, but to me, this alone is one of the biggest mistakes of the game.
Hey, it's Sam from the editing room. Originally, I was gonna go on about how the music was still not that good, but after listening to it for editing this video, it's not that bad actually. But granted, it's still not better than Ultimate Ninja 3's music in my opinion. So, right now we're gonna listen to Revolution 1's music, and then Ultimate Ninja 3's music. So, here, have a listen. There you have it. Both are pretty good, but I do prefer Ultimate Ninja 3's music. Especially because of a reason I'm about to mention right now.
The biggest detriment of the music, however, is how it works in the story. As Naruto went on, the story got progressively darker and darker. And I don't know about you, but this is not the music that fits with the dark story of Naruto. Now this is a good transition to talking about the story mode of the game, which is where a majority of my complaints come from. The first thing to talk about is the cutscenes of the story mode. This game continues the visual novel style from the previous games, but here, I think it's at its worst. For one, the faces that the characters make are really ugly and unappealing. Not to mention, the faces that are chosen for the scenes don't fit in sometimes. This scene is a perfect example. Let me set the stage for you. Sasuke finally runs into his brother Itachi. And this is big. Itachi murdered their clan. So to say Sasuke hates Itachi is kind of an understatement. So, in this super important scene, what face do the developers decide to have Sasuke show? The face you make when you're meeting your girlfriend's dad for the first time? So you fake a smile to hide the fact you're scared out of your mind. Yikes. Another example comes from right before the climactic fight between Naruto and Gaara. Naruto has this stupid grin across his face, while one of his friends is almost dead. Ultimate Ninja 3 coming out less than a year later certainly doesn't help the game either. The cutscenes there are so much cooler than anything this game has to offer. This is coming from a game on the PS2, a system that's a generation behind in terms of consoles. That's just the presentation problems. I haven't even begun talking about the storytelling itself. So let's start by doing that. This game adapts the destruction of the Leaf arc and the Tsunade search arc. So far so good, but let's talk about something that I think is important to realize when talking about this game specifically. According to VGSales.fandom, by June 2008, the GameCube had sold 21.74 million units, whereas the Wii sold 101 million units throughout its life. This means that the Wii was available in a lot more households than the GameCube ever was. This means this game had a bigger opportunity to introduce a new audience to not only the Clash of Ninjas series, but possibly even Naruto as a whole. It's in this that the game falls flat on its face. When Sasuke fights Gaara at the beginning of the story, he says this.
What is going on? Tell me! Are you planning to team up with Orochimaru to crush the Hidden Leaf Village?
The game hasn't even introduced Orochimaru at this point, so anyone new to Naruto might be like, yo, who dis? Some people might be arguing that anyone who's playing this game wouldn't be new to Naruto, but here's my argument. There's no indication on the cover of the game that this isn't the first in the series, but since we've already reviewed the previous Clash of Ninja games, we know this isn't the first one. Not to mention, the next game in the series also has a 2 in it, meaning they must have considered this game as the start of a new series. I just feel like with that line of thinking, they should have done a better job introducing this story to a possible new audience. I wish I could say I was done, but aside from just being a terrible introduction to the story, playing the story is no fun either. You see, this was the start of the Clash of Ninja series becoming almost unfair with the difficulty. Let me explain. The game itself is not super difficult. While there are a few difficult fights here and there, it's quite balanced. However, this is only for the easy difficulty. When you get to the normal difficulty, things get out of control, because Tomy decided it would be a great idea to add win conditions. Let me explain what I mean by this. In certain matches, the criteria for winning won't just be to win, you'll have to win in a certain way. Like in this fight with Tamari, not only do I have to beat her, but I have to beat her using a certain fire attack. The problem here wasn't that I couldn't beat her, I could. The problem was, I didn't do it the specific way the game wanted me to. The game wanted me to win using the Phoenix Flower Jutsu, but the game didn't tell me how to do that attack, so I just kept failing and failing. This is just one example. There are others, but this gets my point across. Eventually, after getting super frustrated, I beat the game on easy mode. So overall, this story mode just didn't do it for me. Just a quick aside, the game also crashed on me twice. Just felt like throwing that in. Not sure if anyone else had this issue, but after the Sasuke and Gaara rematch, it wouldn't let me progress the dialogue. Then, in the Jiraiya and Itachi fight, after I lost, the game just refused to let me progress. Let me know if this has happened to anyone in the comments below. Just curious. So yeah, this is my least favorite entry in the Clash of Ninjas series. I don't see that changing either with the next 2 entries. I'm sure some people will disagree, but that's just how I feel. When talking about Naruto Clash of Ninja Revolution 2, it's impossible to ignore the controversy surrounding it, specifically the differences from its Japanese counterpart, Naruto Gekdo Ninja Taisen 4. Fans claim that this Japanese exclusive is the best game in the series. From the little footage I've seen online, it does look good, but it's hard to say more beyond that without having it in my hands. The reasons we never got this game will become apparent when we get to the story section. But before that, we have to talk about the game on its own merits. So let's keep Naruto November 2 rolling with Naruto Clash of Ninja Revolution 2. There are 2 gameplay additions worth talking about. One is that you can now throw explosive kunai on the ground. These act like explosive mines. Honestly though, I never figured out how to use these, mainly because I skipped the tutorial, so that's my fault. The other much more interesting new addition is now there is a tag team mechanic. This adds a lot of interesting opportunities in the gameplay department. Obviously you can now have a second character help you in battle, but there's more to it than that. You can swap between characters at the press of a button, as long as you've got the chakra to spare. You can swap between characters to allow your partner to recover their health. You can also switch between characters to allow for more interesting combo interactions. But easily the biggest thing that comes from the team battles is the team finishers. Wait until both teammates' chakra meters are filled completely, then hold the left stick down and press the finisher button, and boom! This attack does a ridiculous amount of damage. If you use this attack, most of the time it's just game over from there. As far as I can tell, these are the only gameplay changes made here. If there are any I'm missing, let me know down in the comments below. But for now, let's move on to the presentation, and I think this is a much needed step up in graphics from the last game. This is mainly seen in the new CG cutscenes. Normally I don't talk about the cutscenes until the story mode, but I think the cutscenes here are such a step up, they need to be addressed. Actually, I misspoke there. What I should have said was the fact there are cutscenes at all is a huge step up, because frankly, on their own, they're only okay. I mean, the character models look good in them, but all they really do in these cutscenes is just stand and talk for the whole story mode. It especially doesn't help that a month after this game launched, Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm launched for the PlayStation 3. Granted, there are fewer cutscenes there than here, but again, quality over quantity, people. But putting aside the fact that it took us 4 games to get normal cutscenes, it's nice to actually have them here. But then why do we still have the visual novel cutscenes? Okay, wait, I'll get into that in the story section. For now, let's talk about gameplay presentation. The in-game character models look much nicer than in the last game, which frankly still looked like a GameCube game. Not saying it looked bad, the art style was still there and everything, but from here on, things look much better. Music-wise, look, I've said this in the last 2 videos, and it stands here as well. It's okay, but Ultimate Ninja has a better soundtrack. I'm not even gonna mention Ultimate Ninja Storm because it won't help this game, that's for sure. That's all I have to say about the music. Just go watch my previous videos and you'll hear my thoughts there. As for the story, it's not adapting a story from the show. It has an original story made just for this game. It involves this female ninja named Kaguya, who puts an illusion over the Hidden Leaf Ninja. This causes the ninja to start attacking each other. So obviously, the best solution is to go around and beat up your close friends. This story only exists to give the characters a reason to fight each other. On that front, it works well. Is it at all compelling? No. I never feared for the characters because this is a filler story. Ain't no way the characters are gonna get taken out by these punks. Also, the writing just isn't that compelling. What it is, though, is kind of hilarious.
Choji, what are you doing?
I want to eat some meat.
Huh?
Kakashi-sensei, you'll never be popular with the ladies treating him like this.
Some parts of the story are just really stupid, but that's all I look for in a filler arc if I'm being honest. Moving on from the writing, I want to address something I brought up earlier. That's the fact that they are still using the visual novel style cutscenes for certain parts of the story. What is the point when you now have full CG cutscenes as established earlier? I get it. It was probably cheaper to do this way, but still, I don't get the point when you're already doing these CG cutscenes anyway. It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, let's talk about one last thing when it comes to the story. Is it actually fun to play it? Short answer, yes. The main reason for this is the balance of the story mode. This is just as balanced as Clash of Ninja 2. It starts out easy, but gradually gets more difficult, but is still able to be fair. Even in the final 2 fights, where the game is as hard as nails, I never felt like the game was being unfair. Oh, don't worry, that comes in the next video. The only time I felt like the game was throwing a ridiculous challenge at me was the Guy Sensei fight. Guy has armor, which means he can't be staggered. Your AI partners don't stand a chance, and of course, you have to finish him with your ultimate attack. It just feels like you need to get lucky and wait for your AI partners to not be killed immediately by Guy. But, aside from that one instance, the story mode was incredibly balanced. The last thing they fixed that made the story mode much more fun to play this time around was that they fixed the special requirement failures. I'm referring to when in the last game, you would win the fight, but because you didn't do it in the special way the game wanted you to, you failed. Here, they just make it to where if you get rid of your enemy's health bar, it doesn't end until you fulfill the requirements. Granted, I still don't particularly care for the special requirement stuff, but I'll take what I can get. So overall, I really enjoyed my time with Clash of Ninja Revolution 2. A lot of things here feel like the developers made up for the mistakes of the past. However, I'm not going to end this review without once again bringing up Gekdo Ninja Tyson 4. As I mentioned before, we never technically got this game. While this is the American version, there are critical differences between this and the Japanese version. The main one is that in the Japanese version, they adapted the Sasuke retrieval arc, but the American version of the anime hadn't gotten to that story. So Tomy, not wanting to spoil the story for audiences who maybe hadn't seen the story, decided to change the game's story. This is why we got an original story mode, because they took out the story of the Japanese version. I'm also realizing I may have said story too many times. On the one hand, I get it. But on the other hand, I don't. Ultimate Ninja 3 came out earlier the same year, and that game benefited from that story inclusion. Not to mention, experiencing the story from the games is not a bad experience at all. I haven't watched all 500 episodes of Naruto Shippuden, but I have beaten all of the Ultimate Ninja Storm games, and that's how I first experienced the story of Shippuden. So I don't think experiencing the story through the games would have been a bad thing. But the story change affected more than just the single player portion. It also affected the multiplayer modes, because this game, on the Wii, has no online play. For me, this is not a big deal, and with emulators, I think this issue has now been solved. But back in the day, for people who are huge into fighting games and playing them online, this was an outrage. Even as someone who doesn't care about the multiplayer side of a game and is mainly interested in the single player side of things, this is kind of a ridiculous thing to cut out. Tomy's reason for cutting it out was that they needed more time to work on the original story. I can sort of get that, but the story isn't as good as the show's story anyway, so I don't think most players would say that it was worth sacrificing the online play to flesh it out. In the end though, I'm judging this game for what it is, not what we didn't get. When looking at the game with just that outlook, it's a lot of fun, but it's still hard not to think about what could have been.
Well, here we are again, at the end of another Naruto November. Gotta say, I've had a lot of fun taking a look at this series, but all things come to an end, and they did this time with Clash of Ninja Revolution 3. Many claim that this is the best game in the series. But what do I think? Well, let's find out.
In terms of just the core features, gameplay has probably changed the least. In my time playing the game, it just felt like a better version of Clash of Ninja Revolution 2, which is a really good thing. But the only thing I can think of is that the game now gives you the option to turn off stage obstacles. Wish I knew that before starting the story mode, but I digress. However, there is one thing I heard that was changed, and that was that they balanced the roster compared to the previous games. Again though, if you're like me, you really only play these games for the story mode, and you probably won't notice it that much. However, if you're into the multiplayer side of the games, you'll definitely notice. Speaking of the multiplayer, this game has been the community favorite for online play for quite some time. I only know this from various videos on the subject. As I'll say again, I'm not a huge multiplayer fan. But with that, this is it for the gameplay segment of this video. Shocking for me too, honestly. Moving on to the presentation and how the style of the show is adapted. This game is once again a step up from the previous game in the series. They have finally moved on from the visual novel cutscenes, and here, every cutscene is CG. About freaking time! It actually makes the storytelling feel consistent this time around, as they aren't switching styles throughout. Honestly, that's the biggest improvement on the presentation this time around. The fact it took us this long to get to this point is kind of crazy. but I'm just glad we're here now. Let's talk about the music, and believe it or not, I actually have something to say in this segment. If you've watched my previous videos in this series, you'll know I haven't been too kind on the music in this series. And well, can you blame me? The previous games never had music that fit in the world of Naruto, but here, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they got some good tracks this time. Finally, after 4 games, the soundtrack of a Clash of Ninja game fits within the world of Naruto. To add to that, the music can add to the story and enhance certain cutscenes. I mean, it's not to the same level that Ultimate Ninja Storm was, but still, this series is finally making some progress. Now with that, we can move on to the story, and this is where a majority of my thoughts on the game will come into play. As always, we'll start by talking about the stories they are adapting. This game is adapting the Rescuing Gaara arc, which is the first main story of Naruto Shippuden. This adaptation here is actually pretty good, as most of the important story beats are hit. Naruto returns home from his 2 years of training, and Gaara is kidnapped by the Akatsuki organization. The Akatsuki plan on extracting the tailed beast that resides within Gaara, which in turn will kill Gaara. Again, the story setup is good, however, they do leave out 2 parts that are kind of critical. The first thing that they leave out is we don't get to see Naruto's team arriving at the Sand Village, where Gaara is kidnapped from. This wouldn't be a big deal, but we don't get to see the group meet Granny Chiyo. Chiyo is a very important character, as she explains who the Jinchuriki are, and their importance to the overall story of Naruto. Speaking of, the second thing that Tomy left out was the story explanation of the Jinchuriki. Now, in order to explain why this is important, I'm gonna have to explain a bit of the show's story, and why it's important here. In Naruto, there are these giant monsters known as tailed beasts that are sealed inside of people to prevent them from causing any harm or destruction. These people are called Jinchuriki, and they are extremely powerful. As it happens, Naruto and Gaara are also Jinchuriki, which is why they were both being chased by the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki want to capture all of the Jinchuriki, so at the beginning of Naruto Shippuden, that's why they captured Gaara, because not only do they want the tailed beast inside of him, but they know this will draw out Naruto as well. That's all that really needs to be said in order to understand the context of the story. But why was it important that I mention this? Well, because the game doesn't mention any of this. I can understand why they cut them out though. This is a fighting game, and those moments of story explanation didn't really have any fighting in them at all. But there's still important moments that were left out, and that does knock it down a few points for me. Moving on from the adaptation side of things, let's move on to the actual gameplay side of the story. Before I get to the balancing, because trust me, we'll get to it, I want to talk about the missions. Unfortunately, there aren't any unique beat-em-up levels like in the previous games, but there is one very unique level that's worth talking about. There's a mission where you're playing as Guy, and you are fighting a clone of yourself. The clone mimics every move you do, so you have to figure out an ideal way to damage the clone. It forces the player to come up with unique strategies in order to beat the enemy, and overall leads to a really fun mission. Other than that though, the rest of the missions are just simple fight missions. Nothing wrong with that though, as the fights are just as fun as before. But it's time to talk about the thing I've been dreading this entire marathon, and that's the difficulty of this story mode. Now, I'll be honest, barring the second fight in the story, which I lost a lot for some reason, I didn't have the hardest time with this story. That was until the final 3 fights. These final 3 fights are so freaking difficult. The difficulty takes such a huge step up in these final 3 fights then I'm gonna go through these fights one at a time. First up, we got Chiyo vs Sasori. While there is a lot of story setup for this fight, I never felt like the game did it justice, so I'm not gonna go into it. The first thing that makes this fight super annoying is the fact that your health is draining the whole fight. This makes the fight infuriating. However, that's not the big problem I have with this fight. That would actually be the puppets that you have to use to fight. I don't find them fun to play with at all. I just find them incredibly frustrating to use. They don't move with Chiyo. Instead, when you attack, you actually make the puppets move. So say you move Chiyo to the right, the puppets won't move at all. Rather, they'll just stay still. You have to attack or else they won't move at all. This makes your attack mobility extremely limited, and overall makes the battle, in my opinion, more frustrating than it needs to be. Then, we move on to the second to last battle, Neji and Tenten versus Datara. Honestly, there's nothing that makes this battle distinctly hard.
That is not true. Hey everyone, Sam from the editing room again. Just wanted to point out something. It's been a while since I recorded the footage, so while writing the script, I guess I forgot the reason this boss was actually difficult. And that reason is the time limit. While this fight with Datara is not as difficult as the next one, it still takes a while to beat Datara, and you have to be on your absolute best in order to beat him in the allotted time. Like seriously, I would get so close to beating him, only to lose because I ran out of time. In my opinion, this should have been a 2-minute fight. But hey, what are you gonna do?
And then we get to the last battle. There's a reason I've been building to this fight since the first video of this marathon. Ninetales Naruto vs Datara is one of the most difficult boss fights I have ever faced. You would think that the fight would play similarly to the other fights of Datara, but it does not. Datara does a ridiculous amount of damage compared to your previous encounters with him. Like, look at this! This is ridiculous! Also, don't even think you can block attacks. Datara's explosions will break your guard in no time at all, and of course, breaking your guard takes away some of your chakra. Once again, you would probably think that Naruto being in a super mode would make this fight easier. Well, call me reality because I'm about to dash your hopes. Datara has super armor, meaning he can't be staggered by 90% of your attacks. Also, you know how regaining your chakra can take a bit of time during a normal fight? Well, Datara must be on some chakra steroids or something, because I swear I've seen his chakra recover almost instantly. This allows Datara to keep throwing his projectile attacks almost non-stop. Finally, you have to win the fight by using an ultimate attack. This is the least of your concerns though, as you'll struggle to even get Datara's health to a killable state. By the way, you wanna know how many times I died to this guy? Yeah, me too. I lost count after 32 times. Datara puts the whole story mode in a new light for me. Because aside from these final fights, this story mode is a lot of fun. But again, all I think about when playing the story is these final 3 fights. It's why even with all the improvements the game has made, I still find myself preferring Clash of Ninja 2. Crazy as it sounds. But even with that, Clash of Ninja Revolution 3 remains the best adaptation of a Naruto story in the series. Sadly though, that still stands today, as Clash of Ninja Revolution 3 would be the final entry to be released in the United States. But why? Why, when the series was on an upward trail, would they stop? Clash of Ninja Revolution 3 was released in February 2009, while the first game in the Ultimate Ninja Storm series released in November 2008. Now it's no secret to anyone that the Storm series became far more popular than the Clash of Ninja series ever did. It was flashier, better looking, and told a much more deeper story than Clash of Ninja ever did. So I think Tomy was just not interested in fighting a losing battle. After this, they would mostly focus on portable games, but even then, they wouldn't last much longer. Their final Naruto game would come out on the 3DS in 2011. and with that, Tomy gave up the Naruto game license, making Bandai Namco the only publisher with the rights to make Naruto games. It's funny, before I did this marathon, I thought I was going to enjoy these games more than the Ultimate Ninja games. But I find myself thinking more about Ultimate Ninja than Clash of Ninja. Over the course of 4 games, Ultimate Ninja changed drastically, while Clash of Ninja struggled to innovate. But even with that, I still like this series, and would love to see it come back. So come on, Bandai, get the rights to these games and port them to the Switch. I'll buy them again, I swear. I have a problem. Now finally, let's end this video with a ranking of the Clash of Ninja series as a whole. Clash of Ninja Revolution 1 is in last place. Even if I could get a GameCube controller working, I would still consider this the worst in the series. Poor story mode, useless features, and overall just the weakest entry in the series. The one that started it all is next, with Clash of Ninja 1. While it's still solid, the lack of content holds this one back substantially. Clash of Ninja Revolution 2 is what Revolution 1 should have been. Better gameplay, better presentation, and a hilarious story mode make this one of the best in the series. Clash of Ninja Revolution 3 is a great game, and was overall a great end to the series' time in the West. Having the best story adaptation to date, and the most polished gameplay to date, means it's only held back by the lack of balance in the story mode. But finally, in first place, Clash of Ninja 2, my favorite game in the series. Actually adding a substantial story compared to the first game did so much for me. The story has the best balance out of any game in the series, making it feel fair yet still challenging. I know many out there will disagree with me, but to me, Clash of Ninja 2 is where the series peaked. With that, we have finished Naruto November 2. Thank you all for sticking with these videos. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope you'll enjoy Naruto November 3 when that comes out. But until then, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all for the next video. Later, everyone.